I'm just scrolling through, we've got people here from coast to coast, which is awesome. And like Amanda said, it just goes to show the power of our profession and how many of us feel the need and desire to connect. And this has been a great platform for us to be able to do that. And so we will get started because I'm just kind of going to be cognizant of time. We're a little after 1 p.m. Atlantic Canada time. So I just want to thank you all for coming. I'm Lori Sigfridson, and I am the current president of PHE Canada. And with me today is a very dear friend and colleague, Dr. Amanda Stanec. And Amanda is a fellow Nova Scotian who's now residing in the US and doing some amazing work through her consulting company, Move, Live, Learn, Able Consultants. And so when I was chatting with Amanda last week, we just had a call and we were just checking in, and I said to her, would you be interested in co-hosting with me? And because we were chatting about all the different things that are impacting us right now in our lives and in our work, and as professionals, but also as community members and family members. So she said, yeah, let's do this. And so here we are today. We're going to hopefully connect you with each other around some of the hot topics that I think all of us have been trying to grapple with over the last couple of weeks. And so Amanda, I'll just let you have a quick intro, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, so the first thing I have up here actually is I have my little Ollie bot. And so I'm a very proud Nova Scotian, and this is my little, I have a St. Louis Blues one here too, because they might have won the cup last year, so I'm in St. Louis. And this Ollie bot was made for me by my friend Brian Smith. And many of you know Brian, who is an amazing professional in our field, and his son Oliver unfortunately and tragically lost his battle with cancer late spring. And they make these to raise money for rare children's form of cancer. And so I just wanted to have him here. It's been a heavy week for Canada and Nova Scotia. And so I just wanted to start by just taking a moment of silence, if that's okay with everyone, for just as colleagues and professionals, not just for Oliver, but the victims of last week, and then of course of the news of the crash just in the last couple days. So if we could just take a moment of silence, that would be really special and meaningful. Thank you. Thanks so much. And that was kind of the purpose of the topic in the call today. Like, none of us are experts in teaching physical education during a global pandemic. And so I just want to be very clear here. I stay in my lane. I don't know the best things to do in terms of teaching physical education during a global pandemic. And I think if anyone who's not teaching directly with the students each day tells you what to do, I don't know that I'd necessarily listen. I think you know your students the best, and their relationships is absolutely the key piece right now. And there will be requirements and everything as professionals we respect and we meet. But I just wanted to, kind of share a little bit. I actually was invited by Nathan Horn, physed.com. He was hosting this 9 days of workshops, free workshops in the evenings for professionals. And so he was like, would you come and talk? I was like, no one wants to hear anything. What do I have to talk about? Like, you don't need me to come talk, but I would love to catch up with you. And he's like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, well, it's just crazy right now. I have, I'm working full time. My partner, he works full time. We got 3 kids. They're different ages. And like, that's best case scenario. And so one of the things that I just wanted to remind all of us, and I'm hoping that you'll use the chat. Oh, some of you have, I'm just seeing this now. Like, e-learning is not regular teaching online. And that, of course, I don't have to tell all of you this, but this is the thing that keeps popping up in my mind. Like, the schools have done an incredible job of shifting everything, like the way we do everything in an incredibly short amount of time. One of the things that I love about the district where I live is a lot of the flexibility that they've provided us and a lot of the choice that they've provided us. But I just keep repeating to myself, thank goodness I have this education background so that we can have, 5 outdoor recesses a day. And I know that that's what's best, like less can be more. And I feel so grateful for that. And one of the things that came up out of the talk with Nathan was what can physical educators' role be in terms of communicating and sharing with parents? I volunteer coach soccer. We're hardcore, the Mighty Mustangs, and we're not hardcore. So, but a lot of the moms and dads from the team, they've been texting me saying, like, what types of activities are you setting up for the girls, and asking for information and around that. Like, do we just throw them outside to play? Yes. Do we teach them some skills? Yes. Yes is always a great response to all of these things, and also choice. Also recognizing just like checklists. And I guess the other thing that kept coming to mind is that I would hate for physical education teachers to take things personal right now. If students aren't necessarily completing things that you're sharing with them, maybe they're being active in a lot of different ways. And so just this idea of being flexible, and this idea of understanding that usually we're teaching them skills and understanding are gained through like regular movement exercises. Students aren't normally locked into a screen all day, which is what some, fortunately, not my children, but mine are in elementary and preschool still, some of the older ones, perhaps. Students typically experience PE with human connection, and this is nice, but honestly, like, I don't know if you're making audible sighs, like wishing you went for a run or something instead. Students' home situation sometimes is traumatic, and the students must not be in their usual headspace. And teachers delivering PE aren't usually juggling like as much. I mean, we juggle a lot as physical education teachers, but like right now it's kind of crazy. And I think it's okay to just acknowledge that and realize there hasn't been a global pandemic in 100 years. Hopefully there won't be another one after this one, but this is just, it's different. And so a complete shift in having the exact same expectations, it doesn't necessarily mean we lower expectations, but it just means we maybe really think deeply about how we could change our expectations. So that was just wondering, is there anything anyone like wants to add around that about what you've noticed on how e-learning is not regular teaching online? I know we have some higher ed folks like Kelly, and Richard, we get head of sport for life. Like, feel free. I mean, even with we can even dabble with, a lot of us coach as well. And in the youth sport, I mean, there's Zoom calls with teams. There's so many calls. Managing 3 kids where they're supposed to be and the calls they're supposed to have. That's like I feel like I need a personal assistant for their calendar. I'm like on it, and I want to really show respect, and I've missed some, they've missed some. So what are some things you're noticing about either challenges, or we'll get to the successes, because I definitely like to take an asset-based approach, a pretty positive individual. I agree, Nikki. Nikki shares that she thinks one of the silver linings was giving kids permission to play outside in their rooms, their kitchens. Yes. And I, like, first it was just kind of a free-for-all, but now what we do at our house, I'm not saying this is the way it should be for everywhere. There's a lot of different blocks of an hour to an hour and a half outside, and so they really love one particular sport they're drawn to. And so I say, okay, so every other day, one of those chunks of time, let's play field hockey together. And the oldest, who's 10, has really bought in. She actually creates a practice. She went to Canada Field Hockey and downloaded long-term athlete development in from drills, and she made a Google Doc one night because she wanted to make a practice for her and her sisters and her mother. So I'm learning a new sport alongside them. So once a day, that is, I said every other day, but giving them some parameters, because structure can be really good for all of us a little bit. I was on a call yesterday, a principal talked about what we're presenting to students. Is it worthy of their time or attention or just busy work? Yes, Grant, I completely agree. What I've seen some phys ed teachers do, what I love, is they've given ideas and suggestions, but said, look, if you have something else that's, they're really focusing on the why. So I don't care what you choose, whether it's tumbling in your basement or it's field hockey outside or it's going for a nice jog with someone in your family. Why is it? And asking them the questions like, how did that make you feel afterward? How did that make you feel? How can this help you? I'm having the girls keep a journal, a COVID journal. And one of the things, it's like, how does this exercise make you feel during the day rather than just stay in the house all day? In looking at it, so they understand that the purpose of being active is for no other purpose other than to feel good and feel like you're a nicer person and be less grumpy, if you will. Because health, what does that mean to 8 and 10-year-olds? Let's see, I had to adapt my lesson planning, more parenting tips. Charmaine, I think that's awesome to help parents cope with homeschooling while integrating an active lifestyle with limited resources. I think that's awesome. And most schools send out weekly newsletters or weekly emails. And what we kind of determined in the call with Nathan was maybe that's a great way for us to insert ourselves and allow ourselves to be seen as a leader and a support for parents. It might even lead to more parents coming to see us on parent teacher night when all of this is, when we're past this, when we're back to school. I think we need to realize this isn't really distance learning rather than crisis learning. I love that you mentioned we shouldn't take it. Yeah, there's just so much that has to get done. And if we take it personal, we're going to think that people don't value what it is, what we're doing, whereas they might value it so much that they're saying log out and don't read that because we need to go for a walk. We don't know that to be the case, but definitely don't think you don't matter. I think we probably matter as much or more than ever. Any student activity journals, they're doing many different things. Time with family is a big theme. How many of you, so raise your hands, I'm going to split through the 6 pages here. Wow. How many of you have heard from parents I'm going to have to rethink this overscheduling life that I live when all of this is over? Raise your hand if you've heard that or said it. How do you said it? So not a lot of you, it seems like maybe. I have had a lot of people say this to me, and I've really thought about this myself. I'm realizing how many more touches on the ball a kid gets when you're not driving 30 minutes to practice. Simple stuff. How many more times they pick it up because they have all day to do it. If you want to speak, oh yes, please, if you want to speak, raise the hand function. Some of my middle school students are making the connection between physical and mental health because they're asking them how they're feeling before and after an activity. I love that. Dale, Colin. Hi, Colin. Dale, Side Bottoms webinars have been a lot of fun. Quick activities, give your students a chance. Lisa teaches 420 K4 students and sends out a theme of the week, which is fantastic. Sean teaches 10 to 12 PE, trying to promote any type of activity that benefits both physically and mentally, especially in tough times. I think that's really, really, really important because we all have these things to do, and the to-do list isn't, we have to be responsible for it. And I know myself that when I make the decision to move, then I feel like I can do a lot more. And I think for me, that's the big essential understanding in physical education, is that I know when I'm physically active that I can be empowered, and I can cope better, and I can be more productive and efficient and think better. Like, to me, that is, I guess that might be 4 essential understandings, enduring understandings, but I think that those are the big ones for me. Newfoundland teachers have been turned to Google Classroom and Google Meet. Yesterday, someone was involved with her daughter's healthy living class. Sorry, it scrolls and then it's hard for me to read, which was based in yoga, and the PE teacher led the class. So that's pretty cool. Is that Kelly, who I think it is, from Newfoundland? Baker, is that Kelly Baker? I feel like I'm at a reunion here. It's a lovely feeling. I heard a few parents say, I hope this changes the way people look at long hours. Yes, aside from the human connection, typically in PE setting, but the emphasis on actual physicality of learning through movement, the important of balances. I'm finding here a lot of the kids that I coach who go to independent schools, more so than go to public schools, at young ages. I can only talk about like elementary and early middle. They're logged in. Like, they're logged in, going class to class to class to class. And I think it's because people are paying for a product, and the school feels like you need to just almost be there along with them all day. And I feel so sad that these children are being required. Like, we're not stepping back and saying, like, is this what's best for kids? Or is this keeping my phone from ringing saying, hey, I'm paying a lot of money? Like, I don't know. I don't have any answers here. We're seeing how private sport and fitness are adapting quickly. Our senior manager of operations 5-year-olds taking karate online. Yes, there's a lot of online. And my girls have like a Zoom meeting. I'd let them do like a check-in with their team for the social piece, because I realized last Friday night how nice it was to sit and chat with Lori for maybe 3 hours, maybe not. It was a long time. We had a lot of problems to solve. And so
we did.
It is the human and the social connection is really huge. Like, in one way, I love that the kids are, they're really learning to get along and love each other because they have no one else to play with. But I also really understand how the team cohesion is, and that sense of community they have with their team is really important to them, even at 8 and 10. And so that has been really nice.
And I think too, Amanda, one of the things that we've been chatting about in other Zoom chats is just around how do we as educators determine what those priority areas are, because I think in the beginning we all struggled with how do we manage this? You know, I have a curriculum to teach. Our curriculum isn't the main focus. We know that not all students have the same access to resources, supports, technologies. We know that we have students that have high levels of support. We have students that are in very vulnerable situations. What about those students that are kind of on the cusp around not only their academics, but also their social, emotional, physical well-being? You know, so those are kind of some of the pieces that we've been chatting about since this kind of whole change of environment. And so, like, for those of you that are on the call, have those conversations changed at all since you've been, over the weeks, or do you find that we're still having the same conversations with decision makers or with other staff, other colleagues? Where are you with all that?
I love what Grant posted, Lori. Grant, I'm gonna unmute you. Could you read your last post?
I think it's important now more than ever that regardless of what grades we teach, that we can probably see those students in our mind that were not confident, not engaged, kind of hung around the periphery of our classes. Those are the ones that I think we really need to pay particular attention to reach out to, because those are the ones that were already isolated even when we're in a face-to-face, because they don't see themselves as athletic. Our student athletes and the kids that have confidence, in my own humble opinion, they're going to be successful regardless of what we do or don't do in this environment. Same as in face-to-face, regardless of what our class, the athletes are always going to find a way to make it work for them. So it's the ones that don't see themselves like we are. They don't see themselves as athletic or sporty or whatever term you want to throw in there. We need to go the extra mile now more than ever to make that connection. And I just want to give a shout out to Jocelyn, who said, making that message to parents about to embrace this time to be able to spend with their kids. Mm-hmm. And, that family sense of family. And I know that looks different in every different household, but I think that's a really important message, is to, we're going to get back to a rat race sooner rather than later at some point. Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure that, we can hopefully maintain those family relations that we're hopefully establishing at this point. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's awesome as well, Jocelyn. Like, best case scenario right now is that there's more than, like, this absolute best case scenario is that there's at least one adult home with kids, right? But that may or may not be the case. And when this first happened, an educator in Nova Scotia, who I love, a brother, shared with me, like, he was really, I could tell in his voice, like, he was really unsettled, because he's like, a third of the kids are going to be fine. Like, their parents could be on them. They're motivated. They're going to be just cruising on through. And this was regarding not specifically PE, but in the classroom as well. And then there's a third who the parents will have to coax a bit, but they'll be probably willing to do that and it'll get done. And then there's a third where the student motivation's not there, and the parent, whether it be motivation or understanding or, whatever, there's a third that are just not going to have that support. And he was just felt really upset by how the gap will just continue to widen. And I know we all probably feel that way. I've heard people, everybody who's not in education loves to criticize education. I don't even like to make suggestions because I haven't taught in 10 years, but I feel like this idea of I'm sorry, my daughter is like making faces at me. I'm in the basement. So sorry. This is this best case scenario, in the safe neighborhood where they're playing outside on a beautiful day, like making faces at me. But there's more than, so what he was saying, that this idea of the gap widening, and then what is school going to look like when we go back? I've had some parents say, oh, they're getting so behind. And these are kids that are so supported. I'm like, they're not getting behind. I heard one person say, well, the education system's failing. I mean, kids are they're not required to do it, so they're not doing anything. And it's like, is that an education system thing, or is that a parenting thing for those parents who have the means and can support, right? So, like, it's so challenging, and schools are tasked with so much, and teachers are supposed to solve every problem. And what would a community be without teachers? Like, who's going to be coaching the youth, the recreation level, the Mighty Mustang level, volunteer? Like, who does that? Teachers do that, right? Like, teachers are there after school teaching, not getting paid. Teachers are the heart of the community, in my humble opinion. And so what is this going to look like for them when we go back? Are the benchmark assessments all going to be the same next year when this much of the school year was cut short? Or do we just shift everything a little bit and catch up slowly over time? I don't have the answers, but I think these are questions that at the provincial level ought to be, and I'm sure are being discussed throughout the country, and probably a really great role for PHE Canada is helping to facilitate that in the PE space, which I'm sure that it is. Oftentimes there's more than one sibling. So like I'm running zone defense. You got this, check back in with me, come show me, I need to check your understanding. Okay, yeah, you do your math assessment. If you have it right, you don't need to do the 2 pages of worksheets because let's go play. Like trying to, but I'm working 5:30 p.m. till midnight every night, except for now, when you made it home for this call. And I'm so lucky that I can do that. I mean, how many friends who are 2 people side by side on the different phone calls all day, and then trying to manage the school stuff, let alone you're teaching and you're trying to teach or deliver a lesson. And then you have your own family stuff going on at the same time. I mean, it is not just learning online. It is a completely, and people are handling the pandemic differently. I mean, some people, it's like on their minds all the time. Some students are worried about their parents who might work in grocery stores. They might be nurses or physicians. And so they're constantly have that constant like level of worry regarding the coronavirus. People are clearly losing people they love due to the virus. So and they can't mourn with their families. And so as it goes on, these are other layers of trauma that are on our students. And so I don't have the answers, but I think it's just definitely things we need to recognize.
And I think, Amanda, too, Charmaine,
I'm reading now.
You had a great comment about the mixed messaging that you're getting around who can communicate with families and parents. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
There, I think you can hear me now. Sure, that was me. I'm phoning from Kelowna, BC, Canada, and we live in an area with a lot of vulnerable families. I teach at an elementary school where I'd say 1 out of 4 kids is living in poverty and dealing with a lot of stressors. We have a wonderful counselor who is reaching out to the families, and she's been hearing from them that they are so overwhelmed by emails that they are shutting down. They're not doing anything because it's too much. So we kind of, our admin has made the rule that only the classroom teachers should communicate with families. So anything we want to do, we give to the classroom teacher, and then they decide if it should go out. For example, in honor of Mental Health Week next week, I'm making a private message to all of my 200 students, and I didn't know if I should send it privately or do a mass one for the class. So I put that option to all my classroom teachers, because I teach 10 PE classes, and they have told me, oh yeah, it's fine, my kids are doing fine. Other teachers have said, no, I'll just send it with my weekly newsletter. Others have said you can do it for everyone, but not this family. We also had 2 students who lost their home in a house fire last week. So we're not sending anything to that family, of course. But these are the realistic situations that we're dealing with here, where it's better to do less and have the families participating than overwhelm them with too much and too many options. Our counselor suggested that we give many basic defined actions like you would in high school, like do chapter 10 questions 1 to 6. Well, now you're saying, okay, go for a walk every day for 15 minutes. Just keep it simple and not to overwhelm them with too many choices.
What I mean, I really respect that. I do. I think one of the things that building on that idea might even be like, is there a way that, you know, for if this was to be prolonged, let's say a second wave comes, you know, in the 1918 great influenza, it came in 3 waves, and the first was the smallest, the second was the biggest. And so maybe surveying and determining like who wants more and who doesn't, because For those who don't want, who were overwhelmed, then we should respect that, or even just give them the grace to say, we're going to be sending things, do what you can. Like that's kind of what they did at our district, which I like. So for the families who they do need stuff for their kids to do because they are like they can't be there running a PE lesson outside or a field hockey lesson in the driveway, then they do have that to work on for longer periods of time, if it's something that they may want. So even the idea of sharing, but not demanding that at all, throwing that out there. But it's great that they're listening, you know, but it's like, were some loving it, I guess is my question. And now that's gone.
Well, what I've been doing is I've been emailing all the teachers in our school a list of activities that can be done online or offline, because many don't even have Wi-Fi access, and saying choose what you'd like to do. And then at the bottom, I have a challenge activity with a link like to juggling, learn how to juggle this week or something like that. So 6 activities and then a challenge one, and they choose. But I give that to the classroom teacher and they do what they want with it. That seems to be the fairest way I can meet the needs without causing more anxiety to both the classroom teacher and the families.
Yeah.
If anybody else, sorry, Amanda, I was just going to ask if anybody else is kind of in that same kind of working in that same gray zone where you feel that there is a need to kind of reach out and see if there's a way for you to support them, but may not be able to have the avenue to do that because of families being overwhelmed, or there's not really a good communication strategy, so that families aren't every day of the week getting a call from a different teacher about a different area, but that maybe there is communication amongst the teachers so that there's one phone call home, but you're able to address a variety of different things. What's happening around the country in that aspect. So Steve just wrote in the chat box that they just had a call from their principal just to say hi, just to check in.
Yeah, we got a call the first week from one of our girls' PE teachers, and he said, he taught their dad, so he's been around a while. He's phenomenal. So don't ever call him a dinosaur or something. I get really angry with that stuff. But he's phenomenal, and he really teaches them the why on a daily basis. And he called the first week and he said, listen, what do you need from me? He asked me first, what do you guys need? You probably, and then he said, can I talk to the girls? What do they need? And he said, listen, here's my phone number if you need to call for anything. And I mean, it was so nice that he just called and sent an email, and he said, we're going to be putting some things up in Schoology, but you all know what's best for your children. We're not offended if you don't do it. It was just such a nice message. They were so thrilled to get to talk to him. I've seen several occasions the teachers miss the kids. I mean, they teared up. Some of their teachers have literally teared up talking to the students and everything. I hope you know how appreciated you are by families. I just hope you know that. I hope on this side of education now as a parent in the system, the kids love going to school. They love their teachers. It's amazing. The equity piece is coming up about online and so forth. I know here they loaned Google Chromebooks to families so the children could do their work who didn't have them. They set up hotspots for families who needed them, who didn't have internet. I know that's taking longer. In some rural areas, it's more difficult, but it's definitely a problem. It's definitely something that should be in all discussions. And I don't necessarily think the answer is don't do anything anywhere. I think it's how can we provide all students the opportunity to continue learning, just recognizing that it's going to be a different amount of learning. It's going to be in a different way.
And so across the country, what I know here in Nova Scotia what's happening as far as low tech, no tech, e-learning. I think across the country, that's kind of how the tact that districts have taken. Have they, to be able to assist students with some sort of resources, home supports that don't have the technology. And for those that do have technology, school systems have loaned out equipment. I know, Grant, you had a great example the other day when we chatted about what your district did. I don't know if you want to share that a little bit. Just around providing students was it Chromebooks?
Yeah, laptops or devices across and similar to stories and others. And then a lot of school districts in Manitoba have struck contracts with internet providers for reduced plans. I know I can't speak to other divisions, but our division is paying for the install fees and covering the cost of the monthly internet costs up until the end of June for those families that didn't have the internet connection up until now.
That's phenomenal.
That's awesome. And I have a question for the group as well. I know a lot of you are sharing activities and ideas and suggestions with parents. Have any of you shared like the why, like a lot of all of the, like the understanding of why we move, like it's ingrained in us, but doesn't it blow your mind how when we step outside of our circle at any time, the reasons for movement are completely different. It still look a certain way, or it's like, it is not about feeling good or feeling empowered. Have any of you been communicating to parents like, this is the why, enjoy time with your family and move as a family, and here's the why, and can you help chat with, like, ask your students, ask your children about the why? Have there been any success stories around that you'd like to share? I'm looking through to see if there's a hand up. Do you think that might be something that we could consider trying going forward? I noticed, like, or even just like, so I think someone mentioned, I'm trying to skim this very quickly, but someone mentioned how for some of the students that are more quiet and reserved, but maybe have a lot of great ideas, that this way is actually really inspiring them to communicate more with the PE teacher, which I think is so cool. And so finding ways that, like, how are you being active? How can you share that? And then maybe even, like, instead of an email with things to do, like maybe even just like a spotlight on someone who's demonstrated a creative way to move, or shared like something that they enjoyed related to the movement. I mean, mine were climbing trees the other day, and they found 2 eggs in a nest. And now they climb the tree every day, and now there's 4. It's very exciting. And so, like, just by sharing, like, kids can climb a tree. I mean, I remember one time I let my kid, someone said, your daughter's up in the tree. It was a parking lot at a TJ Maxx or something. I'm like, oh, thanks, I'll get a picture. But they didn't think she should be in the tree. It's like, just sharing that, like, giving people permission, because we're pretty crazy. Like, we've kind of stripped kids of permission to climb trees and do things in a lot of ways, unfortunately. Now everyone's going to talk about liability, and then I'm never going to be invited back to talk again, but let's not go there. So, Riley Humbert, are you related to Louise Humbert? You are? Oh my gosh.
Yes, she's my mom, but her daughter is also in this call right now too.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yes.
she is a very important mentor to me. So it's nice to meet you. Told you, it's Old Home Week. Our schools send out weekly newsletters. The PE department is if you can, try to read some of these ideas and things people are sharing on the chat. Richard shared that there's a new page with links for multiple partners providing resources, including PHE Canada's Home Learning Center, which is great work. So that link is there. Assignment submissions for a Google Classroom have me crying at my laptop. Oh, I'm so sorry, Nikki. I miss my students. So I spent a lot of time ensuring that the feedback I provide is meaningful, and they'll never forget it. I mean, I agree. We can't do what we can. We're going through classroom teachers and sending email once a week. And then there's one for French immersion, Richard mentions. So there's lots of great ideas on here that people are doing. I just want you to know, like, the effort you're making, like, you know what's best for your students right now. But I think what PHE Canada is doing to bring you all together, and with Lori hosting these chats, really provides the opportunity to brainstorm and build on other people's ideas. So that's why I love that you're using the chat, and by all means take the microphone whenever you want it so that you can share what's really working. Some of the thoughts that I had on a run last weekend, like, why should we be teaching it online during a pandemic? You know, stepping back and saying, like, why? And then maybe we need to refocus. But I guarantee you'll meet your outcome, your learning outcomes, if you do that. What are my students thinking about my current approach? Have we asked them? Have we sent a Google form and been like, hey, how's this working for you? What ideas do you have? What would you like to see change? That's always a humbling experience. But it's what requests can I make to my administration to adjust based on my students' feedback? Listen, your administrators have never taught during a global pandemic either, right? But you have. And so are there things you can ask for? Because oftentimes like, more times than not, they just want to support you, support your students. So are there things, like, some of you are writing down, yeah, man, I need to ask my administrator for this. Go for it. What are some ways we can modify our current programming to help students demonstrate an understanding and help them to learn the big ideas that we're trying to get through to them? How are we providing challenges and choice? And are we making the connection that challenge through movement can be such an important, like, learning how good that feels can be such a life skill, and such a platform to learn how challenges in life can help us to feel really good. You know, showing up, getting to that start line, like, there's so much joy that gets you there, that once whatever happens in the race happens in the race, right? And that's what we want our students to understand. Yeah, it's a challenge, but that's where the magic happens. Like, mistakes happen, but, like, that's where the growth happens. So, like, if you're learning to juggle this week, or whatever it is that you chose on the list of activities, and I think it's fabulous that you're giving choice and ideas, giving these suggestions, and then giving them the choice, and then helping them connect the why. Like, where else could you be challenged? This is a challenge right now, right? But we're going to persevere. Are you helping them to connect movement to quality of life, empowerment, and joy? And how can their movement experiences be shared in ways to increase social connection, even though it's not in person? So this is where maybe the meetups can feel good, where you get together and you talk about, well, these are some of the activities I did this week that made me feel really, like, joyful, like they were fun, and I never knew that was fun, and this is why I felt like it was fun. And then say to their peers, like, what are some other things you think this student might like based on that experience? So really just focusing on inquiry-based teaching, and the big idea, the why, I think is just, like, we can't necessarily teach proper technique and follow through right now, but that should never just be the only thing we teach anyway, right? And then how can what we're learning transfer over when life gets back to the way it was? Even though, as somebody mentioned in the chat, I think we're going to be social distancing for a while. I don't know what physical education is going to look like. I don't know what a classroom is going to look like, because how do you get a bunch of second graders to the water fountain? Like, if anyone can figure it out, it's a second grade teacher. But so I'm seeing lots of stuff here, doing online workouts twice a week with students and staff. Sean, is that something that they have to do, or is, obviously that's probably not something they have to do? It's something they're welcome to do. And if they're welcome to do you find a lot of people are participating?
Well, with my class, the one good thing, or the fortunate thing I have, is that because it's mostly 11s and 12s, they choose to be in the class. Mm-hmm. So as Grant was saying earlier, you know, it's the ones that are motivated intrinsically anyway. So very little for me to do, sort of, in terms of motivation. But we talk about the why all the time, and we talk about, you know, you don't have to be an athlete in order to be active. It could be anything. So like just the other day, I was walking my dog and one of my kids screamed from their backyard, "Hey, Mr. Price, I'm doing my activity log." And he was just playing catch with his younger brother.
Aww.
So, and you know, just a thumbs up, and that's what it's all about. It's not about going out and running 5K. It's about just everyday things, you know, and then focusing on how they make you feel and stuff like that. So, you know, we took it a step further and I asked some of the staff, "Hey, do you guys want to do an online workout?" I mean, I can't sit still, as you guys can tell. So it was selfishly, it was motivation for me as well. So now it keeps me accountable to work. But on top of all that, besides the physical activity and the benefits, it's the mental. I'm a pretty social person. Now I get to see 10, 12 of my staff members, my colleagues, and we, you know, blood, sweat, and tears together, and we joke. It's, you know, it's only 30 minutes, and it's just a sort of a release. It's nice to see them, and then it's off to the next one. So it's nice that way. That's kind of why I do it. So
That's awesome.
And it doesn't work with everybody, and it's a choice, but lots of them are making this choice, which is great. And I'm having more people, students and staff now requesting, "Hey, can I join in?" I'm like, yeah, more the merrier.
I think too, I just want to kind of go back to something Cole said earlier in the chat, and I just want to make mention of it. In that, you know, he spoke to, and Cole, if I'm representing this wrong, jump in, just around the safety and security maybe of those students that might not have felt supported in a big group within PE, but doing some of these things at home in a place where they do feel safe. Am I?
Well, I don't know if can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, like, and this is not a comment on the way we teach phys ed as much as some of the kids perceive it. So some of our kids that maybe feel anxious or embarrassed in that group setting and struggle to engage in phys ed because of that, perhaps this is an opportunity to engage them in a way that they're not as anxious about trying new things, and they might find they might discover they've got some skills they didn't know they had. So I think going back to what Grant said about some of these kids that struggle in our class, although I'm concerned about them, as you start to think about it, and there's some other people have put some comments on too, that perhaps this is an opportunity for some of those kids to engage in that physical activity in a way that feels safe to them and builds up their confidence and their competence and their motivation to participate. So possibly a silver lining. But I agree with Grant that monitoring them and in a way that gives them positive feedback is very important.
Awesome. Very well said. And Callie had shared as well, if you want to check the chat, on how she talks about the why and how she spoke to families about having the discussion piece around, that's where the deep meaning lies. Also, Louise is on the call, Dr. Humbert from Saskatchewan, who just won a big teaching award. I wondered if it was like her 15th time winning it, because that's how many I'd give it to her. But she had mentioned that if you have any thoughts for teacher educators to the group, she would love to hear them, and she left her email there. So if any of you can think about ways that you could help teacher educators as they're shifting to online, all online. I've taught online for some of you maybe, and you got those 3-hour classes, man, you got to bring it. It's like, and you really have to take so much energy. Mary, you know, how are you, by the way? It's nice to see you. And so that piece is huge. And it looks like even how, and Kelly, like how you're going to have to shift if it is online in the fall. What are those, you know, that's very different for educational gymnastics, and gymnastics too. He's got people doing all kinds of cool stuff. So how do they take that course with Kelly without equipment and so forth, and distance ed? So there's a lot of You know, and I do love this mindset. I mean, I do think PE teachers are resilient. I do think we are adaptable. I do think we have positive mindset and attitude, but I think the collaboration, you know, we say 21st century learning, critical thinking, collaboration, like let's see how much those skills that we have been focusing on with our students, how much we've developed those skills in ourselves. This piece is huge, you know, being able to, for you all to come together on a weekly basis with Lori and PHE Canada and really brainstorm some of these solutions. And the teacher educators also meet. And so Louise.Humbert at usask.ca, go Huskies. She will be able to connect you with them. Let me see. I sent a survey to the K-12 school about how they're active as individuals and as a family. Based on the results, I create orienteering courses in 5 of the small towns my students are from. Paul, you get a gold star. That's really exceptional. You know, I'm brainstorming. I wonder if PHE Canada could, you know, put a little shout out to their members about some of these really like gold star things that teachers are doing, like spotlight some people like Paul, if you will, and what they're doing technology-wise to support families in Winnipeg. I think oh, look, another win. Manitoba is just, K-12 visit. They got, you know, they just love to show us up. But I think that would be really nice and positive, Lori. You know, just that this is what people are doing. This is an idea. But really, absolutely taking care of yourselves too, and even sharing. Like, look, as I try to teach my own children, it's like a cloudy day can seem sunny after I move my body and sweat. So sometimes if maybe I'm acting in a way that would suggest that I was having a cloudy day, they'll even say, hey, Mom, you gonna go sweat? You know, or the 10-year-olds even come to me and like, I'm just gonna go sweat because I'm a little grumpy. And, you know, they soak it up. Like they get it. They get it when we just talk to them about the big why. But that's the one thing I love about curriculum writing is when you're looking at the enduring understandings and then you're stepping back and what are these big ideas. I think that's where we need to live right now. But I could be wrong because I've never taught during a global pandemic and none of us are experts on it. So I don't want to be taken like verbatim on that. What do you think, Lori?
I agree. And I think, Mary Beth, you've had some really great comments. Do you want to share any of them?
Here she is.
Just around how we approach this in general.
Hi, from PEI. We're all supposed to be here right now, by the way, next year. Thanks to PHE for this chat. It's awesome just hearing all these approaches. And I just was kind of thinking the flip side of what Cole was saying around the opportunities that some of our learners are having to, that might be, you know, don't thrive like some of the others, but I've seen the same with our teachers. So I work at the department and I'm working with my teachers and, you know, I'm seeing them say things like, wow, this feedback that I'm getting one-on-one about the reflection of how I move my body this week is incredible to read and hear. And so just a lot of the silver linings that we try to pick out of these emergency teaching approaches and how they're connecting with people where maybe in the gym setting they wouldn't have connected with them in that way. So I think it's just a positive thing worth noting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think too is one of the conversations I had with my group of PE teachers here in Southwest Nova Scotia yesterday was around how important is it for us to really have feedback right now, or will our feedback come later when we get back with our students, when we see how they've been able to maybe thrive and not just survive, or to be able to cope a little bit better because of the work that we do. We may never ever get feedback on a particular lesson that we've taught, or a series of activities that we may have sent out, or some messaging that we've shared with families, but it doesn't mean that it's not making a great impact. And so I was really encouraging them, because there was some discouragement yesterday around not getting any feedback from parents and the level of what they were seeing as disengagement And I said, they may not be, just like we know when it comes to parent engagement in schools, when schools are normally happening, not every parent can walk through that door of the school, but that does not mean they're not engaged in their child's learning. And right now, just because we may not be getting feedback from families and caregivers or students right now, it doesn't mean that we're not making impact on their learning. And so stay the course, keep doing the great work that you're doing. I think that's really important, because, you know, right now the lessons may not come until later, or we may not see the outcome until later.
Yeah, I mean, just the amount of emails and Google Classroom things and Schoology things, and now it's, which I'm thrilled about, but then Teacher Appreciation Week, so the classroom parents are emailing about this. Then you've got summer camps emailing saying like these are canceled, and then you've got the field hockey saying this is happening in the summer. I mean, it is like, when I say I need an assistant, I'm not kidding. I need someone to manage the home. So there's just no time to, well, you're motivating me to make time to say, like I tried to say thank you to the district so that they pass it on to the teachers. But it is really like we're all treading water. We're all doing whatever I'm writing curriculum under emergency. No, it's fun. But, you know, to that point, Lori, it comes back to, again, like we can't take it personal if we're not hearing from them. But also, I think we should consider reaching out and asking for what's working, and inviting the feedback so that we can either adjust or highlight some wonderful things that are happening. As I think that would be really nice to be able to shine our light on students or families that are doing things that could help inspire other students and families, just like it'd be cool to highlight and shine a light on teachers who are doing some really cool things that are just share the idea. Oh my gosh, look at all this. Don't you all wish we were just hanging out though? Like in person, in Nova Scotia, by the water, eating lobster, listening to fiddle music. That's what I wish. I haven't been home in 2 years and I hope I can get home this summer. See the students and converse with them. Anne's comment that just went in is interesting. One high school in the region of Waterloo created a Google link on their website that had the enduring understandings of HPE and a list of resources and links to physical activity. I like that a lot. I haven't heard of anyone doing that. And I think sharing the enduring understandings would be a really, really nice thing to highlight in a weekly newsletter. Kathy? Oh, Kathy Marshall? My former teammate? I didn't even see you there. How are you? Now I do. Lobster coming tomorrow. Okay, well, I don't like you anymore. Charmaine's in for the party. Interesting. Wow, some families are now just starting. We'll see you. Yes, we'll see you on the island, Mary Beth.
Definitely.
Kids think they're hilarious out there, by the way.
So are there any kind of hot topic items that have come up between now and our previous conversation that you kind of might want to share and put out there that maybe we can help problem solve? Or are there any, you know, we've had some really great activities and ideas put in the chat already this morning. They're just phenomenal, and we will capture these. Similar to how we've operated with all our other chats, we will synthesize the notes and we will have them posted for anybody who wants to go back or talk. So those will be made available to you as well. But yeah, Grant.
Greg's point too is so, it might be the most important point made today of how, like, we might be thinking we're not getting feedback, and they've talked about things that are going on in children's home, but now as the unemployment is increasing and increasing and increasing, how that could, just the financial worry that a lot of our families are experiencing is really important for us to be thinking about.
And over what came out or percolated out were some of the other conversations that we've had, whether it was with our pre-service teacher educators, our in-service teachers, and even within our academic call that we had was around assessment. And it's come up again today in some of the chat, and the desire for many of you to have a conversation around assessment and what does that look like in our current climate, and what is that going to look like going forward. And I am thrilled to say that PHE Canada's Grant McManus and Reg Lytle are going to host a conversation around assessment in the next couple of weeks. I believe it's May 15th. And we'll be sending out information about that. So please join us. It'll be, again, the plan is to have it at the same time every Friday. So this coming Friday, a week from today, we will be having another conversation with our Francophone community. And then the following Friday will be our conversation around assessment. And you know, we're trying to be flexible with that, knowing that some provinces are actually going back into session, and but the goal is to try to stay the course as best we can with this time frame, so that you all can plan accordingly and join us for our chats. In the chat box, a lot of people are using Google Classroom. I think that's been pretty standard, whether they are creating their own classroom or their own site and linking the site with classroom teachers' sites as well, so that you're not recreating a site for every classroom or for every grade. So for next week, you'll register similar to how you registered for today's meeting, and you will get a Zoom link sent out to you. So we're working on those invitations now to go out. So I think one of the pieces too going forward is what does the future of PE look like? So we will be hosting a conversation around that later in the month. Regardless of whether schools go back next week, whether some are going back in June or it's an ease back of some sort in September, we know how schools would have typically operated will not be the same, especially initially. So what does that look like? And right now, Quebec is struggling with the fact that the Quebec PE teachers are struggling with the fact that there will be no PE starting next week when schools go back. And the physical educators are to become classroom support people. And so, you know, how do we manage if we do go back, what our PE programs could look like, so that we are not missing the opportunity to reconnect with our students and redevelop those relationships and hopefully reinvigorate, if needed, that joy of movement, or find the joy in movement again. And so there's lots to think about and lots to discuss going forward. And so if there's anything that you can think of that you would like to have a conversation around, you know, please add it into the chat, or you can connect with us at PHE Canada at any time. And if we're able to accommodate the conversations, we will.
Maybe some work around advocacy, Lori. I'm seeing some of the teachers are being removed from their positions.
Wow.
Getting loud upstairs. Might have to mute my mic soon. Sorry, there's a lot of them. At least they're not making faces. Dylan, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I'm trying to.
Cole's wife, the same thing happened to Cole's wife in Saskatchewan.
So PE teachers are being completely removed from their positions for the interim, or is this kind of are they looking at starting to cut back on PE programming in general? Cole, is that the situation that your wife is in, or?
Well, Tammy may be in a little different situation. They had 2 phys ed teachers in the school, and a grade 4 teacher had to go on medical leave. So they won't hire any temporary contracts. So they have to fill the need from within. So they decided that they would take one of the itinerant teachers and place her in the classroom. But I mean, their school's got 700 students, so they weren't overstaffed with 2 phys ed people when you're trying to reach that many students. So
yeah. So Dylan's situation was similar, except for he was the only PE teacher.
Yeah, Kelly, great point. You know, if that's the case, if we're having some of our PE teachers moved into the classroom, then it's an opportunity for us to advocate for as much movement during other academic courses as well. You know, to remove the sedentary behavior, or do our best to change the sedentary behavior that many of our classrooms promote, and have students up and moving during their learning.
At our kids' school, there's a recess flag. You know, green means it's outside, red means it's inside. And so the first week I put a big green flag on the back of the front door. It was like every day's outdoor recess, just to kind of get them excited about being stuck with me. They were like, yes, outdoor recess. So every time it's time to go outside, I'm like, outdoor recess. And they're all like, yes. Because they still, just the feeling that kids get in school when they're, you go crazy if you knew, if it's like a certain temperature they stay in. Like if it's cold and it's not cold. I mean, those of you out west would really have a good time laughing. Like, they're told to stay inside.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Is there any bark left on the trees around your neighborhood with how much your kids climb?
Well, they get that from one of their uncles, actually, and he's back home. So I blame him for any trees that are, no, they try to take care of the trees. They're good to them. But I do have to tell them when they're too heavy to go up on certain size trees. Because I don't want to go to the ER right now. So Jocelyn shared a TED Talk she thinks would be maybe something we could share in a weekly newsletter, or as part of the administrator's weekly newsletter, The Real Reason Children Fidget. And so she sent the link for that. Thank you, Jocelyn, for that recommendation. Everyone in this mainland after the next round. PA every day, yeah.
And I think too, one of the things that we've done here in Nova Scotia with our at-home learning packets is just around that advocacy piece, just because we know that we may have 2 or 3 more inserts going out to families. We've started to put in some of that language, and it started this week. You know, what is the difference between PE and PA? And it's just been a short, 2-3 sentences, and just starting to do a little bit of that. We'll do more of that when it comes to, talking about our competencies and looking at the why behind movement. And so we'll be doing that with each iteration that goes out. We think we have about 3 or 4 more. In the beginning, they kept cutting us back with space. And so we were trying to put this in right from the start, but we would get bumped for other, what they would call priority areas. And so, but now we've been able to kind of land with a number of characters that they've given us, similar to when we write report cards. And so we've been able to kind of manage and plan for some of those advocacy pieces. So just, again, just something to think about. Where are those little avenues that we can take that might give us a little bit of inroad into the importance of the work that we do, especially going forward if other provinces or jurisdictions are going to be looking at maybe the reduction or restriction of PE. We need to be able to have some pieces out there and ready to say,
I'm going to give you some advice.
This is why.
The process of doing.
I clicked on the 3 links that were sent to me so that I would have them up later and not lose them. And one of them started on this monitor. It's like air traffic control. Sorry, Lori.
That's okay. I had a fear that we were getting Zoom bombed again, and I was like, I'm done. No. I'm out. Just cut it off. But yeah, so just be thinking about some of those pieces where you could have those moments of, by the way, or did you know? And it doesn't have to be a dissertation, just a quick little information blurb for the public that may not. And it's good for anyone, because everyone in Nova Scotia that gets a flyer or gets flyers, those weekly flyers, gets our at-home learning packet. And so even if they're just reading through and don't have children at all, it's a good advocacy tool. Mm. And so that's just something that we've been doing. Yeah, Kelly, the advocacy letter, we, PHE Canada, sent out advocacy letters to every provincial ministry of education, just around the importance of health and physical education, not just now, but going forward. So again, just know that we're out there, we're doing the very best we can to support health and phys ed, and both within the community or the climate we find ourselves in, and trying to plan for what might be coming ahead.
Lori, is there a process for like people's success stories? Can they send them to someone at PHE Canada? Because there's a lot of people who didn't speak today, but I bet they're doing some incredible things. And I know that collectively there'd be so many more ideas if they had the opportunity. So is there something like a process or something that could be an email where they could send success stories so that then PHE Canada could disseminate those across the country to members? Or
yeah, so what we looked at in the past when we started these chats was creating a Google Hub where people could upload any kind of resources so that we could start that clearinghouse. And so after this call, I'll go back to our PHE Canada, our national office staff, and see where we are with that, and see if we can get something started, or share with you the links if it's already happened, that we can do that. Does anybody have?
I just want to thank you for sharing the hour with me and with each other. It was just really nice for my heart. Sounds cheesy, but to be with a bunch of Canadians and talking phys ed, and just give yourselves grace. Like, I know you're working hard, and it's a crazy time. It is a crazy time. And so
thanks, Brian.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work that you do. It's so important.
Thanks, everyone. So appreciate you joining the call. Keep an eye out on Twitter. Check our website. The At Home Learning Center is being populated with new resources quite regularly. So please tap into those. They are there for your use, and share those with your families. Or the families that you're working with. If there's anything, reach out to us. we do have a great community of practice here, and we've been really fortunate to connect across the country. And I'm seeing some repeat faces on the calls, and so it's really great that we're able to do this. Yeah, thanks for spending a Friday afternoon. It's windy and rainy here on the East Coast, so wherever you are, I hope it's sunny and warm. And we'll see you hopefully next week on our next call.
Thanks, Lori.
Take care, everyone. Stunning in Newfoundland.